Morning Year 9, Mrs Slaney here. I'm just going to go through some of the answers and summarise some of the scenes that you're covering in activities 8, 9 and 10. So activity 8, you have a box here which shows you some of the key vocabulary used in the scene and also an explanation, definition of what those words mean. So in this scene, what's important to remember, and I've put it right at the top, is we haven't yet met Macbeth. So I'll quickly run through it. Here you've got the stage directions. So King Duncan, Malcolm, Donalbain, Lennox, and meet a bleeding captain. They say, what bloody man is that? He can report as seemeth by his plight of the revolt, the new estate. So who is this bloody man? Judging from his appearance, I bet he can tell us the latest news about the revolt. Malcolm says, this is the sergeant, who, like a good and hardy soldier, fought against my captivity. Hail, brave friend, say to the king the knowledge of the broil as thou didst leave it. This is the brave sergeant who fought to keep me from being captured. Hail, brave friend, tell the king what was happening in the battle when you left it. So then the captain goes on to describe what had been happening in the battle and gives us quite a detailed description and introduces Macbeth for the first time. Doubtful it stood as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. The merciless MacDonald, worthy to be a rebel, for to that the multiplying villainies of nature do swarm upon him. From the western isles of Cairns and gallows glasses is supplied, and fortune on his damned quarrel smiling showed like a rebel's whore. But all too weak for brave Macbeth, well he deserves that name, disdaining fortune with his brandished steel, which smote with bloody execution like valour's minion, carved out his passage till he faced the slave, which ne'er shook hands nor bade farewell to him till he unseamed him from the nave to the chops and fixed his head upon our battlements. So for a while you couldn't tell who would win. The armies were like two exhausted swimmers clinging to each other and struggling in the water, unable to move. The villainous rebel MacDonald was supported by foot soldiers and horsemen from Ireland and the Hebrides, and Lady Luck was with him, smiling cruelly at his enemies as if she were his whore. But Luck and MacDonald weren't strong enough. Brave Macbeth, laughing at Luck, chopped his way through to MacDonald, who didn't even have time to say goodbye or shake hands before Macbeth split him open from his navel to his jawbone, navel's your belly button, and stuck his head on our castle walls. And Duncan says, O valiant cousin, worthy gentleman, my brave relative, what a worthy man. So here you've firstly been asked to go through and find the vocabulary that have been given. So disdaining here is on line 17, which means ignoring the problem, so ignoring the fact that Luck was against him. Brandished means waving strongly. He was brandishing his steel, which is his sword. Valour here is bravery and bravery or being fearless, and minion is a follower. And unseamed is ripped apart here. I do particularly like this image. So he cuts him from the belly button up to his jaw, and then everything spills out everywhere. And then nave to the chops I just explained. So nave is your belly button up to your jaw. Then you're asked to summarise what is happening. I haven't had space anywhere to write this, but I have just run through it with you. So you need to write your 50 words there and then submit them and show my homework. Annotations. So as you can see on here, I've gone through and I've just made a few notes on here. This is what you'll be looking for when you're annotating. What's important when looking through and thinking about this as a GCSE skill is you don't need to annotate everything. There might not be something important on a few lines, which, as you can see here at the beginning, I haven't made any annotations because I didn't feel that there was anything particularly of value in these first few lines. So I've skipped on and focused on the main part, the main action that happens in this scene. So here it says, underline the quotations and make brief notes about how they show skill and bravery. You've been given an example here. So, O valiant cousin suggests that he's brave and the king treats him like family, which shows he must be respected. So I'll go through my annotations and you can compare them with yours. It doesn't matter if they're not exactly the same as mine. If we were doing this in class, your teacher would probably go through this with you under the visualiser. And again, it doesn't need to be the exact same words to get the same point. So, doubtful it stood as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. And then the first thing that I've done is when Macbeth shows up, so all too but all too weak for brave Macbeth. So immediately the first thing we learn about him there is that they admire him, that they're impressed by him. As well he deserves that name. So afterwards they even go on and qualify, no, he's called brave Macbeth, and I'll explain why. So disdaining fortune, so here the fact that he doesn't believe in fate. So even though it may be that luck is against him, that's not going to affect him, that he's still going to fight on regardless, showing that he's not scared. His brandished steel, with his brandished steel, so here the idea that he's respected as if he's skillful and strong, which smoked with bloody execution. So here I've put at the side, it shows that he's a skilled warrior, but also that he's quite brutal, and they see this as impressive. So him going through and literally carving people down to make his way through to the traitor to then kill him, they see that as impressive in the way that they're talking about him. Also, I've put the idea that he's brandishing steel is that he's strong and also threatening. Like Valor's minion, they're just circled from previous for the vocabulary exercise. Carved out again, showing how strong he is and what a good warrior he is. Till he faced the slave, he didn't shake his hand or say farewell to him, which he wouldn't because he's a traitor. And then he unseamed him. So here I've put that he's butchered him. So the other thing you could put is that he's merciless, that again that he's skilled, so that's something that he's done on purpose. They're not saying that he did this by just sort of swinging his sword around. This is something that he wanted to do. And then also the fact that he cuts his head off and puts it on the battlement, so he does this to show other people, to warn others, if you behave like this, this is what will happen to you. So he wants to send a message to the rest of them. And then the response from Duncan is that he says what a worthy man he is and how thankful he is for him. Then, my favourite thing that I've done so far to date while I've been on video, and you haven't seen any of my drawings yet, so I can only apologise. I carved out his passage. So, here's my Macbeth, and here are all the little people that he's carved in his way. As you can see, I rushed in and didn't read the instruction properly. Brandish steel, it's smoked with bloody execution. So this is Macbeth wearing sunglasses and a cape like a superhero. These are meant to show that it's hot. I can only apologise for my illustrations, but I actually did try. And these are blood droplets coming off his sword. And then unseamed him from the nave to the chops. So this is a man's head on top of a stick. And then, again, this is someone that looks like they've been unzipped. I know it looks a lot like a triangle, but this was the best version I could do. So this is Macbeth. He's only small because I ran out of space. And he's cut the person down the middle, and so they're like falling in half, horror movie style. So, moving on from my amazing drawings. It says, can you write a paragraph about how Shakespeare's language and imagery presents Macbeth as a noble character? Zoom in on the words and images chosen. So I ran out of space because my writing's huge and I wanted you to be able to see it on the video. But I'll read you what I've got and then I'll explain if I would have had a bit more space what I would have done. So some of you might be better off writing this on your phones and then sending it in via Show My Homework or typing a document. Before the audience meet Macbeth, we are provided with an anecdote about his skilled fighting and his brave nature. He laughs at fortune and brandishes his sword without fear. Due to his skills, it smoked as he carved his way towards the coward and unseamed him. So, what I've managed to do is I've managed to identify the words and phrases, but what I haven't managed to do in this section is be able to zoom in on them. So, carved, like we said, you could say about the word, saying it shows that he's strong, he's an experienced fighter. You could also talk about the fact brandish shows that he's strong, shows that he's fearless, that he just rushes in. And the fact that he unseamed him, the idea that he butchered him as well. You could have zoomed in on those and said something about them. It was only because I ran out of space and my writing's really big. So, I hope that all made sense, and if you need anything you can get back to your member of staff. So you can email them or you can send them a message on Show My Homework. And I hope you enjoyed my drawings.